What I am about to tell you is not a story. It is a warning. A warning about a place deep in the mountains where the trees grow too close together and the shadows are too dark. A place where four friends went looking for peace and found something else entirely, something that had been waiting for them. It was Sarah's idea to rent the cabin. She found it online. A beautiful wooden house surrounded by nature. The price was too good. She should have wondered why. Mike drove for 6 hours on roads that got narrower and darker with every mile. By the time they arrived, the sun had already abandoned them. The cabin was old, but looked well maintained. Emma said it had character. Jake said it looked like every horror movie he had ever seen. They laughed at that. They wouldn't laugh for long. Inside, the furniture was covered in white sheets, like sleeping ghosts. The fireplace was cold. The floorboards creaked with every step. Mike found the basement door behind a bookshelf that had been pushed against the wall. Strange place for a bookshelf, he thought. The door was locked with 3 heavy padlocks. Old padlocks rusted shut. Why would someone lock a basement from the outside? What were they trying to keep in? Jake found bolt cutters in the shed. One by one, the padlocks fell to the floor with heavy thuds. The door swung open on its own, revealing wooden stairs descending into absolute darkness. A smell rose from below. Old paper, mold, and something else. Something sweet and rotten that none of them could name. The basement was small and empty, except for a wooden chest in the corner. The diary belonged to Margaret Harrison. She wrote about her husband, Thomas, her children, William, Elizabeth, and baby Peter. They had moved to the cabin to start a new life. The city was too loud, too crowded. Here, they would find peace. Here, they would be a family. The first few entries were full of hope. But then, the entries changed. Margaret wrote about footsteps above their bedroom at night, about the children talking to someone in the woods, about Thomas finding symbols carved into trees that he couldn't explain, about the feeling that something was watching them from the forest, always watching, never blinking. They should have left then. Sarah wanted to, but Mike said it was just an old diary, probably fiction. Emma was already asleep upstairs. Jake was filming everything on his phone, talking about going viral. So they stayed. They locked the basement door again, as if that would help. As if locks had ever stopped what lived there. Sarah woke at 3 a.m. to footsteps on the roof. Not animal footsteps. Human footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Walking from one end of the cabin to the other. Then, stopping directly above her bed. She held her breath. The ceiling creaked. Something was pressing down. Testing. Waiting. Mike heard them first. whispers coming from inside the walls. At first he thought it was the wind through cracks in the wood. But wind doesn't speak. Wind doesn't say your name. Wind doesn't tell you to open the basement door, to come down, to join them, to stay forever. Emma saw them through the window. A woman in a white nightgown standing at the edge of the forest. Beside her, 3 children holding hands. They weren't moving. They weren't breathing, but they were smiling. Wide, impossible smiles. And then, without walking, they were closer. Much closer. Sarah found the last entry in the diary. Margaret's handwriting was barely legible, scratched into the paper. They found us. They came from the basement. They wear our faces now. If you're reading this, you're already too late. We never left. We can never leave. And now, neither can you. The basement door opened on its own. The padlocks were still intact. The hinges didn't move. But the door was open. From the darkness below came the sound of footsteps on the wooden stairs. One step, then another, then many. Too many steps for one person. Too many steps for 5. They came up from the basement. The Harrison family. Mother, father, William, Elizabeth, baby Peter, still a baby after 50 years. Their skin was gray. Their eyes were black holes. Their smiles were too wide for human faces. They moved wrong, joints bending in directions they shouldn't, and they spoke in unison. Welcome home. Jake ran for the front door. It wouldn't open. The windows wouldn't break. The walls had no cracks anymore. The cabin had become a sealed tomb. Emma screamed. Mike tried to fight. Sarah understood. The diary was right. They could never leave. No one ever leaves. One by one, they were taken. Jake first, pulled into the basement, screaming. Then, Emma, who simply walked toward the family as if in a trance. Mike fought until there was nothing left to fight. Sarah was last. She watched as her friends' eyes turned black, as their smiles grew wide, as they became part of the family. Sarah felt cold hands on her shoulders. Margaret's voice whispered in her ear, soft as death. Don't be afraid, dear. It only hurts for a moment. Then you'll be happy. Then you'll be home. Sarah tried to scream, but her mouth was already smiling. That wide, impossible smile. Morning came. The cabin stood silent in the forest. Inside, 8 figures sat motionless in the living room. The Harrison family and their new additions. 4 young friends who came looking for peace. They found it. They found eternal peace. They found a family that would never let them go. So remember this warning. If you ever find a cabin in the woods with a price too good to be true, keep driving. If you ever find a locked basement door, leave it locked. And if you ever hear whispers calling your name from the darkness, do not answer, because some places collect souls, and they are very, very patient.